Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, everybody. Lovely to see you here. This is Tea with a Druid 165, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. Well, what about that intro? A couple of weeks ago, I was getting a bit tired of the standard one that was provided, and I said if anybody watching these teas would like to offer a little countdown video, it'd be lovely to see them. And Matthew Knisley very kindly sent that in. It's extraordinary. Um, I pointed out, I'm so critical, it's awful. I pointed out to him that the Romans weren't too nice with the Druids at certain times, and splendid and magnificent, though, like somebody said, your countdown looks like a countdown to Armageddon. Yes, I said, splendid though it is, it's a little imperial, the gold and the Roman numerals, and maybe tea with the Druid is I suppose more about the earth and so on. So it is exciting. I do love it. So Matthew, it's not that I don't like it. I think it's fantastic. But Matthew and I have talked about it, and he is going to tweak it to make it a little different. So so there you go. And those of you who saw the opening picture, the holding picture before the broadcast began, was an example of a little bit of everyday magic. We've had a little cold snap of, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, really, really cold. And I looked at the plastic recycling bin outside the house, and the water on top with a few leaves that had fallen had just frozen. So it was like a pane of glass. So I asked Stephanie to hold it up, and I just took a photograph of it. So that's what it was. It was a sheet of ice with some leaves that had been frozen in it. Little magical moment. So I hope you're doing well. It's lovely to see everybody arriving here from all over the place. Snowy Albuquerque, yes. And Dawn Miller, Too Little Forest. Yes, we're going to have more trees, I think, in the next introductory film. So that's great. Hi to see everybody. There's so many people here now. Denmark and Michigan, icy central Virginia. So I know if you're in the States, it is very cold on the East Coast, isn't it? Maybe all over the place. I don't know. But I was hearing about the snow in Texas, for instance. And I believe Scotland recorded its lowest temperatures up in Aberdeen. It was -20, I believe. But it's, I don't know about you, but I love really cold weather. As long as the sky is clear, then cold weather is so invigorating. So we've been on fantastic walks in this crisp, cold air. Now it's warmed up, but it's kind of damp, so it's not so pleasant, really. Yes, it was a little bit I was a little bit unsettled, says Vivian, watching the film. Yes, it's powerful stuff, isn't it? Okay, so so I hope you're well. And what I wanted to talk about is delicious emptiness. I was sitting here, I was just going into a meditation just at about 7 o'clock, about an hour before beginning this, just tuning in to what to talk about this evening and where our meditation should take us. And I had this very beautiful feeling of what came to me as delicious emptiness. So it's that feeling of being empty in a good way. It feels delicious. And then I thought, what's the difference between delicious emptiness and scary emptiness? Because emptiness can also be a frightening feeling, a scary feeling. So I don't know if this speaks to you, whether you've had experiences of scary emptiness, whether you've had experiences of delicious emptiness, to what degree you feel you can control that feeling. Does it just come to us? Is it out of our control, or can we cultivate this delicious emptiness? I think meditation is an art and a discipline that helps us to cultivate this, that helps us to open up and be receptive to the magic of the moment. When you're doing psychotherapy, when you're in a psychotherapeutic relationship and situation, one of the most important things I think to understand or to be able to inhabit is that place of not knowing, of emptiness, where you have no expectations. And I think the same thing applies to love, actually, where you have no expectations. You are simply there for the other person, but not even in a mysterious way for the other person. You're there together, in presence together. And when you can allow that and be in relationship with the other, and of course this applies to other situations, not just therapy. I mean, it applies to sitting with a tree, meditating, so on. Then the magic can arise. Then something mysterious can happen that is often very hard to put into words, but feels essentially magical, golden in some way, special. In a way like that sheet of ice that just the cold had set this moment with these different leaves in this sheet of ice, and it was this magical moment. And one of the ways I think that we can cultivate this delicious emptiness, which is paradoxically far from empty when you allow it to be empty, is through trust, through patience, through meditation, and through taking a risk. So it's radical in some ways, taking a risk. And by that, I mean the risk that nothing may arise. There may be no magic. There may be simply emptiness and an experience of no thing. But I think it's no coincidence that the sacred well and the Holy Grail, or the chalice, the cauldron, are such central symbols in Druidry, because they are containers. They hold this invisible substance that offer an inexhaustible supply of inspiration, of Arwen in Druid terms. And this is why it's said that if you're a bard and you train as a bard, you learn how to drink from the cauldron, and that the cauldron will feed you with an endless supply of stories. And that's why creative inspiration is so fascinating as a phenomenon, because as Grayson Perry, the wonderful Grayson Perry, says, the artist, potter, says, you know, if you can just sit still in the forest, then just maybe the little furry creatures can come into the forest clearing. And of course, the trick is to even be free of the clinging to or the desire for the creatures to come into the forest. So as you sit in meditation, as you sit in a spirit of openness and delicious nothingness, you're free even of that desire and that expectation that you're going to get something. And then if you're still, up bubbles the inspiration. There's a beautiful pool in Brocéliande in Brittany, in the forest, called the Fontaine de Barenton, which is where Merlin was said to have been entrapped by the Fae, Morgana. Is it Morgana? Vivian. I can't remember. It's just gone out of my mind. But that's where he, in the story as it's set in Brittany, that's where he ends up in this wonderful sort of crystal bubble. And in this fountain, if you go there, there's this phenomenon where bubbles come up from the depths of the pool. So it's used as an oracular pool. So what you do is you go and sit by the pool, and you go very still, and you ask a question in your heart, and then you gaze into this pool. And then, if there's to be an answer, it bubbles up. And with the bubbles, of course, you have to allow then these bubbles to kind of inspire you. But that makes me think of the two things. The Kogi, this wonderful tribe up in the, is it Colombia? Is it further over? Up in the mountains, they feel themselves to be the elder brothers. Humanity is the younger brother. And they have a method of divination, ancient method that they use, of bubbles in a bowl. And it also reminds me of the most extraordinary pool that I was taken to by a famous actress whose name I can't remember. I'm sorry, this is one of these evenings where all these kind of details are escaping me. Maybe because I've tuned in so much to Emptiness, I'm not able to recall these names. I did interview her, and I think it was on DRUIDcast way back, a number of years ago. But she's a lovely lady, and she has a healing sanctuary in West Sussex. And in her garden, she has a pool which is utterly unique. Apparently, there are only a few of them in Britain. It's about 2 meters wide, this pool. And from the center, when you sit around it, big bubbles appear. They just go up like that. And she said to me, she was in the film Blow Up. She said to me, this is a healing, living being, this pool. And look, it speaks to me. And in that wonderful way that actors can do, she said, darling, I love you. Darling, I love you. And then these bubbles immediately started appearing in the water. This wonderful interaction between this phenomenon of nature and the actress. And we can sit by a pool, or we can sit together in this spirit of openness and trust. And so what I've tried to do this evening is be with you in trust, to be open to you, to allow some bubbles to come up. And let's look at this. Julie Oven, I have experienced wonderful emptiness when meditating. However, I have recently experienced scary emptiness when experiencing brain fog, grasping for what I should know, that should be instantly familiar, but has slipped away in a frightening, drowning in emptiness way. Thank you, Julie. Let's just kind of go into that a bit. There's that moment of panic, isn't there, where you might be comfortable in your consciousness, but then you want to take hold of a thought and it slips away from you. Like, for instance, now when I wanted to think of this famous person's name and I couldn't get it, I could have easily panicked. And it happens for me if I introduce somebody that I don't know very well. And I suddenly, as I'm in the middle of introducing them, I've forgotten one of their names. It's a very embarrassing moment. And it introduces an instant sense of sort of panic. and you're talking about it in a deeper way, I think, of where one has this feeling of not knowing and emptiness and a kind of brain fog, and you try to grasp at knowledge, at things you might know to sustain you or to inform you, and you can't get hold of them. This reminds me of over the last 10 days, I've been working on a project for a seminar I'm giving on Wednesday for the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation in Mexico online, about a method that we use in sophrology called the Seven Valleys. And it's a preparation for a peaceful and a thoughtful death. And you go through 7 stages, essentially, in a state of deep relaxation. In this deep relaxation, you're taken on a journey through 7 valleys. It's very beautiful. It's based on a very early Sufi text. And the first valley is the valley of knowledge. And in that, you allow yourself to distinguish between the knower and the known. So in other words, you place your trust on your consciousness, the mirror of your consciousness, the reality of your consciousness, the experience of your consciousness, however foggy or indistinct, but on you as knower, as opposed to the contents that the knower has, the contents of consciousness. And this is a big shift if you can make it. If you can separate out knower from known, it's a huge step forward, because as we go through life, we try to take hold of the known, to build a body of knowledge, to grow, to change, to be of value in the world, to be able to accomplish things, and so on. But we make a mistake, I think, when we confuse that with who we are, because we know that the more knowledge we acquire, often the more contradictory knowledge we acquire as well. And if you study any topic in detail, you find this interesting paradoxical situation arises, whereby the more you know about something, the more you realize that the less you know about it, because there are arguments and counter arguments and subtleties and nuances and so on. And so the first stage in this process is just allowing oneself to not know. And to come back to the brain fog question that you raised, we're in an extraordinary extended period collectively as humanity of being in a state of not knowing. Somebody likened it the other day to me as being in the interuterine state, where we were being cared for, but we don't know how to get out, and we don't know when we're going to be able to get out, to be born again into the world. Sorry, there's lots of very interesting questions, which is why I'm pausing to read them. This is very interesting. There's, I think, when we come to a place of release. Yes, thank you, Anne Michelle. That's lovely. That's a very insightful comment, I think. Yes. And Gordon's saying yes. When anything ends, yes, like a marriage or a relationship or a bereavement, there's this void, and it can be scary being alone. Sharing nature with wildlife and the ancestors, respectfully learning with humility. Yeah. So let's sit here now together. I wonder if we can do that. We're all over the world. There's about 450 of us now, and over time that will build. But if we look at this present moment, there are about 450 of us all over the world, all over the world. And the thing about welcoming emptiness is when we have a container. So I mentioned that story of the potter and artist saying, if we can sit still in the clearing in the forest, inspiration can come in the form of furry animals, in his analogy. And of course, that's why we use the sacred grove in the Druid tradition. We use this image of essentially emptiness, because what is a clearing if not emptiness in something that is full of trees? And then you have emptiness. So we sit in this place of emptiness, but it's delineated by the trees. And we come into this clearing together, all 450 of us. It's a nice big clearing. And we can imagine ourselves perhaps holding hands together in this circle, as we would in a Druid ceremony. And in Druid ceremonies, we come together and we hold hands, and there's a magical moment where you feel the presence of the circle. You feel the presence of the container that is this circle. And you could say that it's empty, because what is that? There's just space. There's a bunch of hands all connected up, the space. But you can feel that it's incredibly fertile. It's magical. By creating this container, we allow the magic to occur. And so let's imagine now that we all are holding hands, and we look around the circle and we see each other's faces, we smile at each other, and there's this sense of wonder and awe at being together at this moment. And we sense the earth beneath us, the trees around us, and we can smell the trees, the wonderful smell of the trees and their presence. And we sense that our circle is bigger. There's the circle of our brothers and sisters, the trees around us. And we breathe in deeply, and the energy of the sky flows into us and into our circle. And we become aware of the earth, and we feel our love for the earth. And let's now just imagine that you're sitting down on the earth now, letting go of the hands to either side of you, and just putting your hands on the earth. Just feeling our love for the earth, not forcing it, it's no effort. You know, the way true love just flows. It's like you're not making it flow. It just is. It's just flowing like a river. So our love for the planet is just flowing. And you can feel the earth. Maybe you can feel the texture. What is it? Is it grass beneath on the palms of your hands? Is it perhaps moist leaves? Perhaps it's snow. Perhaps it's quite cold. Or frosty earth. But you sense your love for the earth and all of our loves for this earth. And we ask that this earth, this planet, might be preserved and protected. May this earth, this planet, be blessed. May all of us as humanity, as humankind, awaken to the reality that life is precious, that the earth is beautiful, and that we should seek to respect it, to preserve it, to protect it, for the good of all beings, for the good of our children and our grandchildren. And so may this be. And imagine moving your hands up to your heart. And you might like to move your hands up physically and place your palms on your chest, one over the other, feeling the warmth in your heart and just allowing yourself to come back to an awareness of being an embodied manifestation of life. of being a human being on this earth. And gradually, as you do this, your awareness of the sacred grove begins to fade. As you become aware of being seated here in front of your computer or phone or tablet, fully present here and now. And when you feel ready, you open your eyes. Excuse me. I'm just clicking on various comments that I'm seeing because there are lots of lovely comments here. Yes. Well, thank you. It's so good to be with you. Charlene's in New Zealand. I know her. Yes, like trees are creating a healing network of energy and love. Yes, Charlene. So it's great. So have a wonderful week. And if let me give you the if just this work of preparing for a thoughtful transition, which is actually, it's also a method, just a spiritual method in itself of personal and spiritual development. Let me look now on my events page, and I think this is a workshop. I think it's through donation, but they've got, I mean, a whole program of very interesting seminars that they're putting on the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, called Preparing for a Thoughtful Death series. So I think mine on Wednesday, and then I think they have them once a month on Wednesday, but they also have I think I posted it there. I think they also have other events as well. So have a lovely evening and a little day, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meanwhile, lots and lots of love and many blessings. Bye. I'll come back and read all these quotes when I've got a cup of tea.